Number 1. When I first looked at this 1965 Ford Galaxie 500 XL, the first word that came to my mind was presence. This is the kind of classic American car that immediately dominates attention without even trying. In my opinion, vehicles from the 1960s had a completely different level of personality compared to modern cars today. Back then, automakers designed cars to feel bold, memorable, and full of character, and I think this Galaxie represents that era perfectly. The bright yellow exterior is probably my favorite part of the entire car. Personally, I think this color gives the Galaxie a very confident and energetic personality. Today, most modern vehicles come in neutral colors like silver, black, white, or gray because manufacturers play it safe. But this car comes from a time when American cars were designed to stand out on the road. The yellow paint combined with the black interior creates a really strong vintage contrast that instantly gives the car a classic muscle-era feeling. What I find especially interesting is how large and stylish the body design is. Modern cars are often shaped mainly for fuel efficiency and aerodynamics, but older American cars like this were built with style as a priority. The long body lines, wide stance, chrome details, and oversized appearance make this Galaxie feel more like a moving piece of history than just basic transportation. In my opinion, that's exactly why so many people still love classic American cars today. Another thing that caught my attention is the fact that the seller describes the car as mostly original. Personally, I think originality is one of the most important qualities for a vintage vehicle. A lot of older cars get modified so heavily that they lose their original identity over time. But when a classic car still keeps many of its factory characteristics, it feels much more authentic and meaningful. This Galaxie seems to carry that original spirit from the 1960s, and I think that gives it a lot of charm. The seller also mentions that the car runs, drives, starts, and stops properly, which honestly makes a huge difference. Many classic cars look amazing in photos but end up sitting in garages for years because they no longer function correctly. In my opinion, a classic car becomes much more exciting when it can actually be driven and enjoyed on the road. I can easily picture someone taking this Galaxie out for a relaxed evening cruise, hearing the deep engine sound, and watching people turn their heads as the car slowly passes by. I also think the automatic transmission fits the personality of this car perfectly. Some people prefer manual transmissions for a more hands-on driving experience, but personally, I think an automatic works really well for a large vintage cruiser like this. It makes the driving experience feel smooth, comfortable, and relaxed. Cars like the Galaxie were made for cruising, not rushing, and I think the automatic transmission helps preserve that feeling. The mileage is another detail that surprised me. Seeing just over 61,000 miles on a car from 1965 honestly feels pretty low considering the age. Of course, with classic vehicles, maintenance and condition are usually more important than mileage alone, but lower mileage still adds to the car's overall appeal in my opinion. It creates the impression that the vehicle may have been cared for carefully over the years rather than driven excessively. Another thing that stands out to me is the ownership history. According to the seller, this Galaxie has only had 2 owners. Honestly, that feels pretty rare for a vehicle that has existed for more than 6 decades. Many classic cars pass through countless owners over time, often losing pieces of their history along the way. In my opinion, fewer owners can sometimes suggest that the car was genuinely appreciated and preserved instead of constantly flipped for profit. The clean title is also a very important detail. Older vehicles can sometimes come with complicated paperwork, missing records, or hidden legal issues, so hearing that this Galaxie has a clean title definitely makes it feel more trustworthy. Personally, I think that gives potential buyers more confidence when considering a classic car purchase. Now, the price is honestly one of the biggest reasons why I think this car is interesting. At $8,500, this feels like a relatively affordable way to enter the world of classic American cars. Today, many vintage vehicles are becoming more expensive every year, especially ones that still appear complete and mostly original. Some fully restored classics cost tens of thousands of dollars, making them impossible for average enthusiasts to afford. But this Galaxie feels more realistic and accessible while still offering that timeless vintage experience. What I personally love most about classic cars like this is the emotional feeling they create. Modern vehicles are filled with advanced technology, giant touchscreens, cameras, sensors, and digital systems. They're impressive in their own way, but sometimes they can feel a little cold and lifeless. Cars like this 1965 Ford Galaxie feel completely different. They have soul, personality, and history. Every scratch, every detail, and every sound feels connected to a different era. When I look at this car, I imagine all the decades it has survived. I think about the roads it traveled, the memories created inside it, and how many changes in the world this vehicle has witnessed since 1965. That's something modern cars simply cannot replicate. In my opinion, owning a classic car is not only about transportation, it's about preserving a piece of history. I also think this Galaxie could appeal to different kinds of buyers. Some people might see it as a future restoration project, slowly bringing the car back to showroom condition over time. Others might prefer to leave it mostly untouched and enjoy the original worn character because it tells a story. Personally, I think both approaches are interesting because each owner connects with classic cars differently. Overall, in my opinion, this 1965 Ford Galaxie 500 XL represents everything people love about vintage American automobiles. It has bold styling, strong road presence, originality, history, and personality that modern vehicles often lack today. It may not be perfect, but honestly, I think that imperfection is part of what makes it feel real and authentic. For someone who truly appreciates old-school American cars, this Galaxie feels like more than just an old vehicle. It feels like a rolling memory from a completely different era of automotive culture. And at the end of the day, I think that's exactly what makes this car so special. Number 2, today we're looking at a really interesting classic American car, a 1964 Ford Fairlane powered by a 289 V8 engine and paired with a 4-speed manual transmission. And honestly, in my opinion, this is the kind of vintage car that has a lot of personality left in it. It's not a fully restored show car, and it's not trying to be perfect either. What makes this one appealing is the fact that it still feels authentic and original, which is something a lot of classic car fans actually prefer these days. One of the first things that stood out to me about this Fairlane is that it still wears its original paint. That alone gives the car a completely different vibe compared to heavily restored classics. You can see the age, the history, and the character in the body. Personally, I think survivor-style cars like this are becoming more desirable because they tell a real story. Every scratch, every faded area, and every little imperfection reflects decades of life on the road. According to the seller, this Fairlane spent most of its years in Arizona. Now, if you know anything about classic cars, especially cars from the 1960s, you know how important that is. Dry climates are usually much kinder to older vehicles because moisture and humidity are what cause serious rust problems over time. The seller mentions that the car has very little rust, and honestly, that could save the next owner a huge amount of money and restoration work. Under the hood is the famous 289 cubic inch V8 engine. Ford enthusiasts know this motor well because it earned a reputation for being reliable, simple, and fun to drive. Combined with the 4-speed manual transmission, this car probably delivers a very raw and engaging driving experience. In my opinion, classic cars are always more enjoyable with a manual transmission because it makes you feel connected to the car in a way modern vehicles just don't. The seller also says the engine has already had some work done and that the car runs good. Apparently, it's been driven around town multiple times every week, which is actually another positive sign. Sometimes old cars sit for years without moving, and that can create all kinds of hidden mechanical problems. A classic that still gets driven regularly usually means it has been kept alive and maintained enough to stay roadworthy. Now, the car definitely isn't perfect. The interior needs restoration work, and there are some spots on the paint that could use attention. But honestly, depending on what kind of buyer you are, that may not even be a bad thing. Some people would rather buy a classic car that still needs a little work because it gives them the freedom to restore it their own way. You can choose the interior style, decide how far you want to take the restoration, and slowly improve the car over time while still enjoying it. Another thing I like about this Fairlane is that it feels honest. A lot of classic car listings online are filled with over-restored vehicles that look amazing in pictures but lose some of their original charm. This car seems more like a genuine driver-quality classic. Something you could take to local car meets, weekend cruises, or just enjoy on sunny days without worrying about keeping it locked away in a garage. The design of the 1964 Fairlane is also worth appreciating. It has that clean, straight-body styling from the mid-1960s American car era. The proportions are simple but aggressive enough to still look cool today. And with the V8 and 4-speed setup, It has the right ingredients to be both collectible and fun at the same time. In my opinion, this car would fit someone looking for a classic project that's already running and driving instead of starting from scratch. The fact that it still has originality, low rust, and a solid drivetrain makes it feel like a promising foundation for the future. Whether someone wants to fully restore it or simply drive it as is and enjoy the vintage look, there's definitely potential here. The car is located in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, and the asking price is $18,000 or best offer. For the right classic car enthusiast, this could be a really interesting opportunity to own a true piece of American automotive history. Number 3. A heavily upgraded 1965 Ford Mustang that perfectly represents the golden era of American muscle cars while incorporating several modern performance enhancements that make it far more exciting to drive today. In my opinion, this build is the kind of classic Mustang that immediately grabs attention because it successfully combines vintage styling with serious horsepower upgrades, creating a car that feels both nostalgic and aggressive at the same time. The bright red exterior gives the vehicle a bold road presence, while the black interior maintains the timeless muscle car atmosphere that enthusiasts still love decades later. Even before hearing the engine start, the car already delivers that unmistakable classic Mustang personality that continues to make first-generation Mustangs some of the most recognizable American cars ever built. Under the hood, this Mustang has been fitted with a built 341 Ford engine combined with a supercharger setup, dramatically increasing performance compared to the original factory configuration from 1965. In my view, the supercharger is one of the most exciting modifications that can be added to a classic muscle car because it completely changes the character of the vehicle. Instead of simply cruising like a restored classic, this Mustang likely delivers instant throttle response, strong acceleration, and the aggressive engine sound that many enthusiasts look for in a performance-oriented build. The addition of the Holley EFI fuel injection system also modernizes the driving experience significantly. Unlike older carburetor systems that can require constant adjustments, electronic fuel injection helps improve reliability, smoother cold starts, better fuel delivery, and more consistent engine performance in different driving conditions. Personally, I think this is one of the smartest upgrades for anyone who actually wants to enjoy driving a vintage muscle car regularly instead of treating it only as a weekend show vehicle. Another feature that makes this car appealing is the automatic transmission. Some enthusiasts prefer manual gearboxes for classic muscle cars, but in my opinion, an automatic transmission can make a high-powered street car much more enjoyable and practical, especially for cruising, city driving, or longer road trips. Combined with the supercharged engine setup, the automatic transmission likely allows the car to deliver smooth power delivery while still maintaining the strong acceleration expected from a modified Mustang. This creates a driving experience that feels powerful without becoming overly difficult or tiring to manage in everyday situations. The exterior styling of this 1965 Mustang remains one of its strongest qualities. First-generation Mustangs have always carried an iconic design language with their long hood, aggressive front end, and sporty proportions. In my opinion, the red paint color works perfectly on this body style because it highlights the car's curves and muscular stance while giving it that classic American performance appearance. Paired with the black interior, the overall presentation feels clean, aggressive, and timeless without looking overly customized or exaggerated. Some heavily modified classic cars lose their original charm after extensive changes, but this Mustang appears to maintain the balance between modernization and preserving the authentic spirit of the vehicle. According to the seller, the vehicle has only around 10,000 miles and has had just 2 owners throughout its lifetime. That detail alone may attract collectors and enthusiasts who value ownership history and lower mileage examples. The seller also mentions that the car carries a clean title, is fully paid off, and does not have any significant damage or major mechanical issues. In my opinion, that combination makes the car even more attractive because performance builds can sometimes hide unfinished projects or reliability concerns. A clean and functional setup with modern upgrades already completed can save future owners a significant amount of time, money, and frustration. What I personally find most interesting about this Mustang is the balance it offers between classic car appeal and modern performance capability. Many vintage muscle cars look incredible but can feel outdated when driven regularly due to old suspension systems, unreliable fuel delivery, or limited power compared to modern vehicles. This build appears to solve many of those issues by integrating upgraded engine components and electronic fuel injection, while still preserving the legendary identity of the original 1965 Mustang platform. In my opinion, that combination makes the car more usable, more enjoyable, and potentially more valuable to enthusiasts who want a classic car experience without sacrificing drivability. Another reason this Mustang stands out is because first-generation Mustangs continue to hold a strong position within the classic car market. Their popularity has remained consistent for decades thanks to their iconic design, large aftermarket support, and strong enthusiast community. Cars like this often attract attention not only from collectors but also from younger enthusiasts entering the muscle car scene for the first time. Personally, I think builds like this are especially appealing because they provide the emotional experience of driving a vintage American muscle car while still delivering enough performance to compete with many modern sports cars in terms of excitement and road presence. The asking price of $18,500, or best offer, also seems relatively competitive considering the amount of work and aftermarket performance parts already installed. Supercharger systems, EFI conversions, engine builds, and supporting modifications can become very expensive when completed professionally. In my opinion, finding a classic Mustang with these upgrades already completed at this price range could represent a strong value for buyers looking to enter the classic muscle car market without starting an expensive restoration or modification project from scratch. Of course, any buyer would still want to inspect the vehicle carefully, but based on the seller's description, the overall package sounds quite impressive for the money being asked. Located in Manalapan Township, New Jersey, this 1965 Ford Mustang represents more than just a restored classic car. It feels like a carefully upgraded muscle car designed to deliver excitement, attention, and everyday enjoyment all at the same time. In my opinion, this is the type of build that appeals to people who appreciate classic automotive history but also want modern performance enhancements that make the car genuinely fun to drive in today's world. With its supercharged V8 engine, electronic fuel injection system, automatic transmission, clean appearance, and iconic styling, this Mustang successfully captures the spirit of classic American performance while adding the reliability and drivability that many enthusiasts look for in a modernized Restomod build. Number 4. A classic 1966 Ford Fairlane that perfectly captures the raw spirit of American muscle cars from the golden era of performance driving. In my opinion, this Fairlane is the kind of vehicle that immediately grabs attention because it combines timeless styling with serious street performance upgrades that make it feel far more exciting than a standard factory example. While many classic cars are restored mainly for appearance, this particular Fairlane seems to have been built with the idea of truly enjoying the driving experience, and that is what makes it especially interesting for muscle car enthusiasts. Under the hood sits a powerful 351 Cleveland V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, creating a combination that offers both strong performance and comfortable drivability. The 351 Cleveland has always been respected among Ford performance fans because of its excellent power potential and aggressive character. In this Fairlane, the engine setup appears designed to deliver a classic muscle car experience with plenty of torque and a deep exhaust tone that instantly reminds people why vintage V8 cars remain so popular today. In my opinion, the engine alone gives this car a completely different personality compared to many ordinary classic cruisers. One of the standout features is the exhaust setup. The car is equipped with hooker headers connected to straight pipes, creating a loud and aggressive sound that perfectly matches the car's old-school muscle car identity. The exhaust note is likely sharp, raw, and attention-grabbing, especially during acceleration. For many enthusiasts, the sound of a classic V8 engine is just as important as the appearance, and this Fairlane clearly delivers that authentic American muscle car soundtrack. In my opinion, cars like this are not only about transportation, they are about emotion, presence, and the feeling you get every time you start the engine. The driving experience is further improved with the addition of a B&M floor-mounted speed shifter. This upgrade gives the interior a more performance-focused atmosphere while also making the car feel more connected to its muscle car roots. Small details like this often make a huge difference because they help transform the vehicle from a standard vintage car into something that feels purpose-built for enthusiasts who genuinely enjoy driving. The combination of the automatic transmission and aftermarket shifter likely makes the car comfortable enough for cruising while still feeling aggressive when accelerating hard. Another major performance feature is the Speedway 4.11 positive traction rear end. In my opinion, this is one of the most exciting upgrades on the entire vehicle because it significantly changes how the car behaves under acceleration. A 4.11 gear ratio allows the car to launch much harder and feel much more responsive, especially at lower speeds. Combined with the power of the Cleveland engine, this setup likely gives the Fairlane a very lively and energetic driving personality. Whether leaving a stoplight or accelerating onto the highway, the car probably feels quick, loud, and full of character in a way that modern vehicles often cannot replicate. Braking performance has also been improved with upgraded front disc brakes while retaining drum brakes in the rear. This combination helps provide better stopping power and increased driver confidence compared to the original factory drum brake setup. While keeping some of the classic mechanical simplicity intact, the front disc conversion offers a more practical driving experience for modern roads. In my opinion, upgrades like this are important because they allow vintage cars to remain enjoyable and safer to drive regularly without completely removing their classic identity. Inside the cabin, the Fairlane features a black leather interior that gives the car a clean and timeless appearance. The dark interior contrasts beautifully with the Wilmington cream exterior paint, creating a classic color combination that feels elegant while still maintaining a strong muscle car attitude. The interior likely provides a comfortable environment for cruising while still preserving the vintage atmosphere that collectors and enthusiasts appreciate in vehicles from the 1960s. In my opinion, the black leather helps the car feel more refined and complete rather than overly stripped down or race-oriented. The exterior styling of the 1966 Ford Fairlane remains one of the most recognizable designs from Ford's muscle car era. The body lines are sharp, clean, and aggressive without appearing overly complicated. Finished in Wilmington cream, this Fairlane has a subtle but classy appearance that allows the upgraded stance and performance parts to speak for themselves. Unlike some brightly colored muscle cars that demand attention immediately, this Fairlane seems to have a more mature and confident style that becomes even more impressive the longer you look at it. In my opinion, the paint choice works perfectly because it preserves the vintage personality of the vehicle while still making it stand out at car shows, cruise nights, or weekend events. Another important detail is the ownership history. The vehicle reportedly has only 2 owners, a clean title, and no significant damage or known mechanical issues. That is always encouraging when looking at classic cars because it suggests the vehicle has likely been cared for over the years rather than neglected or heavily abused. With approximately 124,900 miles on the odometer, the car also represents something many enthusiasts appreciate: a classic vehicle that has actually been driven and enjoyed rather than simply stored away. In my opinion, classic cars often become more interesting when they show evidence of real use and real history because it gives them personality and authenticity that cannot be recreated artificially. What makes this Fairlane especially appealing is the balance between classic style and practical usability. Some vintage muscle cars become too extreme, making them difficult or uncomfortable to drive regularly. Others remain completely stock and sometimes lack the excitement modern enthusiasts want. This car seems to sit comfortably between those two extremes. It keeps the unmistakable appearance and soul of a 1960s Ford muscle car while adding enough performance upgrades to make the driving experience feel exciting and engaging even today. In my opinion, this 1966 Ford Fairlane represents the type of classic American car that continues to attract enthusiasts because it offers something modern vehicles often struggle to provide: real personality. Every part of the car, from the loud exhaust note to the aggressive rear gearing and classic body lines, contributes to an experience that feels emotional rather than simply functional. It is the kind of car that turns a simple drive into an event and makes people look back at it after parking. Located in Lynchburg, Virginia, and offered at a price of $24,900, this Fairlane appears to be a solid opportunity for someone looking to own a genuine piece of American muscle car culture. Whether used for weekend cruising, local car shows, or simply enjoying the sound and feel of a classic V8 engine, this car seems capable of delivering an experience that remains timeless even decades after it was originally built. Number 5. 1962 Ford Galaxie 500. In my opinion, this 1962 Ford Galaxie 500 is the kind of classic American car that immediately captures attention because it represents a simpler and more elegant era of automotive design. Unlike many modern vehicles that focus heavily on technology and aggressive styling, the Galaxie carries a timeless appearance with long body lines, chrome accents, and a clean 4-door sedan profile that still looks impressive more than 6 decades later. What makes this particular example even more interesting is the fact that it appears to have been restored carefully while still maintaining much of its original identity. Under the hood, this Galaxie is powered by the original 223 cubic-inch inline 6-cylinder engine paired with a 3-speed manual transmission and a classic column-mounted shifter. Personally, I think this setup gives the car a very authentic driving experience that many vintage car enthusiasts continue to appreciate today. Driving an older manual transmission vehicle like this feels completely different compared to modern automatic cars. There is more engagement, more character, and a stronger connection between the driver and the machine. According to the seller, the engine has been fully rebuilt and fitted with a brand new carburetor, and it reportedly runs phenomenal. That is a major advantage because rebuilding a classic engine properly can be both expensive and time-consuming. One thing I really like about this Galaxie is that it has not been over-modified. A lot of classic cars eventually lose their original personality because owners replace too many factory components with aftermarket parts. In this case, the seller mentions that the car remains pretty much 100% original aside from the upgraded rear suspension and modern stereo equipment. In my opinion, that balance is actually ideal for many buyers. You still get the vintage feel and originality, but you also benefit from a few improvements that make the vehicle more comfortable and practical for modern driving conditions. The upgraded rear suspension should help improve ride quality and overall stability while cruising on the highway. Even though this is a large early 1960s sedan, vehicles like the Galaxie were designed to provide a smooth and comfortable driving experience. Ford built these cars during a time when long-distance road trips were becoming increasingly popular across America, and comfort played a major role in the design philosophy. I imagine this car would feel right at home cruising down a scenic back road or attending local weekend car meets. Inside the cabin, the restoration work appears to continue with brand new upholstery and carpeting throughout the interior. Personally, I think restoring an interior correctly is one of the most important parts of bringing an older vehicle back to life because that is the environment the driver experiences every time they get behind the wheel. A clean and refreshed interior can completely change how a classic car feels. The brown interior color also pairs very nicely with the red exterior paint, creating a warm and vintage look that fits the personality of the car perfectly. The addition of a newer stereo system and upgraded speakers is another practical improvement that many people will probably appreciate. While originality is important, having decent sound quality during a drive can make the experience much more enjoyable without significantly changing the overall appearance of the vehicle. It sounds like the seller tried to modernize only the areas that improve comfort while preserving the car's original character everywhere else. When it comes to exterior condition, the seller describes the paint as approximately a 9 out of 10, which is very impressive for a classic vehicle of this age. The only issue mentioned is a small area of peeling near the rear trunk emblem. Honestly, I think minor imperfections like that can actually make a classic car feel more authentic because it shows the vehicle is still being enjoyed instead of hidden away like a museum piece. Most importantly, the seller states that the body is completely rust-free. In my opinion, that may be one of the biggest selling points of this entire car because rust repair on vintage vehicles can quickly become extremely expensive and difficult. Finding a rust-free early 1960s sedan is becoming harder every year, especially one that has already been restored. Another thing worth mentioning is the practicality of this Galaxie compared to some other classic cars from the same era. Because it is a four-door sedan, it offers more interior space and usability than many two-door coupes or sports cars. That means it could comfortably carry passengers, making it more suitable for family cruising, road trips, or weekend events. Sometimes four-door classics are also overlooked in the collector market, which can make them a better value for buyers who simply want to enjoy owning and driving a vintage American car without spending an enormous amount of money. With 148,000 miles showing on the odometer, this Galaxie has clearly lived a long life, but based on the seller's description, it seems to have been maintained and restored with care. In many cases, mileage becomes less important on older classics once major mechanical work has already been completed. A fully rebuilt engine combined with a solid rust-free body can often be more valuable than a low-mileage car that still needs extensive restoration work. Overall, I think this 1962 Ford Galaxie 500 represents a very appealing opportunity for someone who wants an affordable and honest classic American sedan that is already restored and ready to drive. It combines originality, vintage styling, fresh mechanical work, and modern comfort upgrades in a package that still feels true to its era. Located in Crossville, Tennessee, the car is currently being offered for $14,000. The seller is mainly interested in cash but may also consider possible trades depending on the offer. For anyone searching for a clean and usable early 1960s classic with timeless American styling, this Galaxie could definitely be worth serious consideration. Number 6. This 1968 Mercury Cougar XR7 honestly feels like the perfect example of classic American muscle mixed with luxury styling. In my opinion, the Cougar has always been one of the most underrated cars from the late 1960s. While many people immediately focus on Mustangs or Camaros, the Cougar quietly developed its own identity with a more refined and aggressive appearance. And looking at this particular XR7, I can definitely see why so many classic car enthusiasts still admire these cars today. The first thing that instantly caught my attention is the blue exterior combined with the white interior. Personally, I think this color combination gives the car a very elegant but powerful personality at the same time. The deep blue paint has that timeless vintage look that feels classy without losing the aggressive muscle car attitude that the Cougar is known for. Then when you pair it with a white interior, it creates a strong contrast that makes the whole car feel premium and unique compared to many darker muscle cars from that era. One of the biggest reasons this Cougar stands out to me is what's under the hood. According to the seller, the car originally came with a 390 engine, but it now has a 428 Cobra jet installed. And honestly, in my opinion, that completely changes the personality of the car. The 428 Cobra jet is legendary in the world of classic American performance cars. Back in the late 1960s, engines like this were built during the golden age of horsepower, when manufacturers competed to create some of the most exciting street cars America had ever seen. Personally, I think swapping in a 428 CJ makes this Cougar feel far more special and aggressive than an average classic cruiser. This isn't just a car for casual driving anymore. It sounds more like a serious muscle machine with real performance potential. The seller also mentions that the car has an R-code transmission, which adds even more credibility and excitement to the build. For classic muscle car fans, details like that matter a lot because they connect directly to the performance heritage of the era. Another thing I really like is that the seller says the sheet metal is original. In my opinion, originality in the body structure is extremely important for classic cars because rust and body repairs can become major issues over time. Knowing that the original sheet metal is still intact makes this Cougar feel much more authentic and valuable. It suggests that the car may have been preserved carefully instead of being pieced together from heavy restoration work. The paint is around 11 years old, which honestly doesn't sound bad to me at all. A lot of classic cars are constantly repainted, but older paint can sometimes give a vehicle more personality and realism. Personally, I think slightly aged paint often matches the character of vintage muscle cars better than ultra-perfect modern restorations. It gives the car a lived-in history instead of making it feel like a museum display. The original 1968 Shelby GT rims are another detail that immediately grabbed my attention. In my opinion, wheels can completely change the appearance of a classic car, and these rims fit the Cougar perfectly. They add a stronger performance look while still staying true to the period-correct style of the late 1960s. Small details like this are what make classic car builds feel thoughtful and authentic. The seller also mentions that the car recently received new brakes and tires, which is something I personally consider very important. Performance is exciting, but safety matters too, especially in older muscle cars with powerful engines. Knowing that those components were updated makes the vehicle feel more road-ready and enjoyable to drive. Inside the car, the seller describes the interior as fair overall, with one damaged spot on the driver's seat. Honestly, in my opinion, that doesn't really bother me too much. This car already feels like something built to be driven and enjoyed rather than hidden away inside a showroom. Minor imperfections are pretty normal for vehicles over 50 years old, and sometimes those flaws actually add personality and realism to the car. The new headliner is another nice touch because interior details can make a huge difference in how a classic car feels overall. A clean interior roof instantly makes the cabin feel fresher and more cared for, even if the rest of the interior still shows some age. What really surprised me is the mileage on the motor. The seller says there are only about 5,000 miles on the engine setup, which in my opinion makes this build feel relatively fresh. That could mean the engine still has a lot of life left, which is important for anyone wanting to actually enjoy driving the car instead of constantly repairing it. And honestly, when I picture this 1968 Mercury Cougar XR7 on the road, I imagine it sounding absolutely incredible. Cars from this era had a completely different presence compared to modern vehicles. They were loud, raw, mechanical, and full of emotion. Modern performance cars are faster in many ways, but older muscle cars like this deliver a driving experience that feels more alive and unforgettable. The price of $25,000 also feels interesting to me considering everything this car offers. With the 428 Cobra jet swap, original sheet metal, Shelby rims, and classic late 60s styling, I honestly think this Cougar has a lot of appeal for serious muscle car fans. Fully restored or rare muscle cars today can easily sell for much higher prices, so this feels like one of those cars that still offers strong value while keeping its authentic personality. Overall, in my opinion, this 1968 Mercury Cougar XR7 feels like a true classic American muscle car with style, performance, and character all combined together. It's not just about speed or appearance alone, it's about the feeling the car creates. From the aggressive engine setup to the elegant blue and white color combination, this Cougar feels like a machine built during one of the greatest eras in American automotive history. And honestly, I think that's exactly what makes it so special today. Number 7. Today we're checking out a 1962 Ford Galaxie 500XL, and honestly, this is one of those classic full-size American cars that immediately grabs attention with its timeless styling. In my opinion, the early 60s Ford designs have a really unique presence on the road. They're long, low, and have that unmistakable vintage look that makes people stop and stare wherever they go. What really stands out about this particular Galaxie is the fact that it already has an all-new interior. And honestly, that's a huge advantage for anyone shopping for a classic car. Interior restorations can take a lot of time and money, especially on older vehicles where parts are harder to find. So seeing that the cabin has already been redone makes this car feel much more complete and ready to enjoy right away. The Ford Galaxie 500XL was considered one of Ford's more upscale performance-inspired models back in the early 60s. It combined full-size comfort with sporty styling touches, which made it a very popular car during its time. Even today, these cars still carry that same cool cruiser vibe. Personally, I think this generation of Galaxie looks especially good because it has that perfect balance between luxury and muscle-era attitude before the true muscle car boom fully arrived later in the decade. Another thing I like about cars like this is the amount of presence they have on the road. Modern cars all tend to look similar, but a classic Galaxie has real personality. The chrome trim, wide body lines, and massive proportions give it a look you simply don't see anymore. You can easily imagine this thing cruising down an American highway in the 1960s with the windows down and the V8 rumbling in the background. Even though the listing itself is short, sometimes that can actually be a good sign because it leaves room for buyers to inspect the car in person and ask questions directly. The seller specifically mentions serious inquiries only, which usually tells me they understand the value of the car and probably don't want to waste time with people who aren't genuinely interested. In my opinion, this Galaxie could make a great weekend cruiser, local car show vehicle, or even a long-term collectible. Full-size American classics from the early 60s have been gaining more appreciation lately because they offer a different experience compared to smaller muscle cars. They're comfortable, stylish, and have a very nostalgic feel behind the wheel. And let's be honest, there's just something special about driving a car from this era. The steering feel, the dashboard design, the chrome details, and the overall driving experience feel completely different from modern vehicles. It's more about enjoying the journey rather than rushing to the destination. This 1962 Ford Galaxie 500XL is located in Greenwood, Indiana, and the asking price is $14,000. Overall, I think this could be a very interesting option for someone looking to get into the classic car world with something stylish, comfortable, and full of vintage American character. Number 8. A remarkably preserved 1966 Ford Fairlane 500 that stands out as a true survivor from the golden age of American automobiles. In my opinion, cars like this are becoming increasingly difficult to find because many classic vehicles from the 1960s have either been heavily modified, fully restored, or lost over time. This Fairlane manages to preserve much of its original character while still receiving several important mechanical upgrades that improve safety, reliability, and everyday drivability. Finished in a classic green exterior paired with a matching green interior, the car carries a unique vintage appearance that immediately reflects the styling trends of mid-1960s American performance sedans. Personally, I think the matching color combination gives the vehicle a very authentic and nostalgic look that helps it stand apart from more common muscle car builds seen today. Under the hood, this 1966 Ford Fairlane 500 retains its original 289 cubic inch V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission. In my view, keeping the original powertrain adds significant value to the overall character of the car because it preserves the authentic driving experience Ford intended during that era. Unlike heavily modified builds that focus entirely on horsepower, this Fairlane seems to prioritize originality, smooth cruising, and long-term collectability. The 289 V8 is widely respected among classic Ford enthusiasts for being dependable, simple to maintain, and capable of delivering enjoyable performance without sacrificing reliability. Combined with the automatic transmission, the driving experience is likely smooth, comfortable, and ideal for relaxed cruising or weekend car shows. Although the car maintains much of its original identity, the seller has invested in several modern upgrades that significantly improve safety and drivability. One of the most important additions is the new Wilkesboro front disc brake kit. In my opinion, this is an excellent upgrade because braking performance on many classic cars from the 1960s can feel outdated compared to modern vehicles. The upgraded Wilkesboro system likely provides stronger stopping power, better brake response, and improved confidence behind the wheel. The rear drum brakes have also been replaced, while a new dual master cylinder and proportioning valve have been installed to create a safer and more balanced braking setup overall. These upgrades help modernize the driving experience without removing the car's vintage personality. The seller also states that nearly all critical maintenance items have already been addressed. All hoses, belts, fluids, and filters have been replaced, helping ensure that the vehicle remains dependable and road-ready. A new gas tank, radiator, fuel pump, and muffler have also been installed, which in my opinion is very important for a classic car intended to be driven regularly rather than simply displayed in storage. One particularly smart upgrade is the Petronix electronic ignition system. Older ignition systems often require constant adjustment and maintenance, but electronic ignition setups improve starting reliability, smoother engine operation, and overall performance consistency. Personally, I think upgrades like this are some of the best modifications for vintage cars because they improve reliability while remaining mostly invisible and respectful to the vehicle's original appearance. Another detail that gives this Fairlane a strong visual presence is the wheel and tire setup. The car rides on period-correct 14-inch torque thrust wheels fitted with BF Goodrich Silvertown Red Line radial tires. In my opinion, this combination perfectly complements the classic muscle car styling of the Fairlane without appearing overly modern or exaggerated. The Red Line tires especially help recreate the authentic 1960s performance car aesthetic, while the torque thrust wheels add a subtle custom touch that enhances the overall stance and appearance of the vehicle. Small details like these can dramatically influence the personality of a classic car, and I think this setup strikes an excellent balance between originality and tasteful enhancement. According to the seller, the vehicle has been driven approximately 35,000 miles and remains in excellent condition with no significant damage or major mechanical problems reported. The car also carries a clean Illinois title and previously came from a collection located in Atlanta, Georgia. In my opinion, vehicles sourced from private collections are often maintained more carefully than average classics because collectors typically prioritize preservation and proper storage. That history may help explain why this Fairlane appears to remain in such well-preserved condition today. One of the most impressive aspects of this listing is the fact that the car has reportedly become a multi-award winner during the 2025 car show season. Personally, I think that recognition says a lot about the quality, presentation, and attention to detail invested in the vehicle. Car show awards are often highly competitive, especially within the classic American car community, so earning multiple awards suggests that this Fairlane has attracted strong positive attention from both enthusiasts and judges alike. For collectors, that kind of recognition can increase the overall appeal and desirability of the vehicle even further. The asking price for this 1966 Ford Fairlane 500 is $31,000, with the seller also open to offers. In my opinion, the value of this car comes not only from its condition and originality, but also from the fact that many expensive maintenance and safety upgrades have already been completed. Buyers looking for a vintage Ford that can be enjoyed immediately without requiring major restoration work may find this Fairlane especially appealing. Instead of purchasing a project car that demands years of repairs and additional investment, this example appears ready for cruising, car shows, and weekend enjoyment from day one. Located in Chicago Heights, Illinois, this Fairlane represents a classic American survivor that successfully preserves the charm and identity of the mid-1960s while incorporating carefully selected upgrades that improve reliability and drivability. In my opinion, this is the type of classic car that appeals to enthusiasts who appreciate authenticity, tasteful preservation, and practical usability rather than extreme modifications. With its original 289 V8 engine, upgraded braking system, award-winning presentation, and beautifully preserved vintage styling, this 1966 Ford Fairlane 500 stands as a strong example of why classic American cars continue to capture the attention of enthusiasts across generations. Number 9. A classic 1966 Ford Galaxie 500 that offers vintage American style, comfortable cruising, and an affordable entry into the world of classic cars. In my opinion, this Galaxie stands out because it represents the kind of full-size American cruiser that was built during an era when cars were designed with personality, presence, and simplicity in mind. Unlike many modern vehicles filled with complicated technology, This Galaxie delivers a much more relaxed and nostalgic driving experience that focuses on comfort, sound, and classic styling. Powered by a 352 cubic inch V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, this 1966 Ford Galaxie 500 appears to be a reliable and easy driving classic that is ready to be enjoyed immediately. According to the seller, the car starts, drives, shifts, and moves properly, making it what many enthusiasts would describe as a true get-in-and-go classic car. In my opinion, that is one of the most attractive things about this vehicle because many vintage cars at this price point often require extensive repairs before they can even be driven confidently. This Galaxie seems to offer a much more usable and approachable ownership experience for someone wanting a classic car without taking on a massive restoration project. The 352 V8 engine gives the car the smooth power delivery that full-size Ford vehicles from the 1960s were known for. While it may not be built as an aggressive muscle car, the engine likely provides plenty of torque for comfortable cruising and highway driving. In my opinion, cars like the Galaxie 500 were never really about extreme speed. Instead, they were designed to provide a relaxed and confident driving experience where the sound of the V8 engine, the soft suspension, and the large comfortable cabin all work together to create a feeling that modern cars simply cannot duplicate. One of the most encouraging details about this vehicle is the recent maintenance work that has already been completed. The seller states that the car has received a new gas tank, filler neck, sending unit, and one new wheel cylinder. These upgrades are important because fuel system and brake-related repairs are very common concerns on older vehicles that have spent years sitting unused. In my opinion, the fact that these components have already been addressed suggests that the car has been kept running and maintained rather than abandoned or forgotten. For a buyer looking for a classic car that can be driven and enjoyed right away, that adds significant value and peace of mind. The automatic transmission also makes the Galaxie easier to drive for a wider range of people. Unlike some classic cars that require constant adjustment or more demanding manual shifting, this setup likely allows for smooth cruising whether driving through town, attending local car shows, or taking weekend road trips. The seller also mentions that the tires are in good condition, meaning the car is already prepared for regular use without immediately needing additional expenses. In my opinion, details like this make the car especially appealing to someone entering the classic car hobby for the first time. Visually, the car features a green exterior paired with a matching green interior, giving it a very authentic mid-1960s American appearance. During that era, manufacturers often experimented with bold color combinations, and this Galaxie perfectly reflects that unique design philosophy. The matching green color scheme gives the vehicle a distinctive personality that helps separate it from many other classic cars on the road today. In my opinion, the color combination adds charm and originality because it feels period-correct and honest to the car's history rather than overly modernized or modified. The interior likely provides the spacious and comfortable cabin experience that made full-size American sedans so popular during the 1960s. Cars like the Galaxie were built for long-distance cruising, family travel, and relaxed highway driving. Sitting behind the wheel of a vehicle like this often feels completely different from driving modern cars because the large steering wheel, wide seating, soft suspension, and simple dashboard all contribute to a calmer and more nostalgic atmosphere. In my opinion, that experience is a huge part of why so many people continue to fall in love with classic American cars decades after they were originally produced. The seller does mention a few cosmetic imperfections, including minor bubbling on the rear quarter panels and a trunk seal that may need replacement soon. However, these issues appear relatively small compared to the overall condition and usability of the vehicle. In my opinion, minor imperfections can actually make classic cars feel more authentic and approachable because not every enthusiast wants a perfect trailer queen that is too expensive or stressful to drive regularly. Sometimes a car with small flaws becomes much more enjoyable because the owner can simply focus on driving and enjoying it rather than constantly worrying about preserving perfection. Another major advantage of this Galaxie 500 is its affordability. Priced at only $13,000, it represents one of the more accessible ways to enter the classic American car market. Many muscle cars and collector vehicles from the 1960s have become extremely expensive, making them difficult for average enthusiasts to purchase. This Galaxie, however, still offers vintage V8 power, classic styling, and genuine 1960s character at a price that remains relatively reasonable. In my opinion, that makes it an excellent choice for someone looking to experience the classic car lifestyle without spending an overwhelming amount of money. The vehicle is located in Saylorsburg, Pennsylvania, and according to the seller, it is fully paid off with a clean title and no significant damage or major mechanical problems reported. With only around 57,487 miles shown, this Galaxie appears to have plenty of life left for future cruising, local car meets, and weekend drives. The seller even encourages potential buyers to sit behind the wheel and experience how the car runs personally, which often shows confidence in the vehicle's drivability and overall condition. In my opinion, this 1966 Ford Galaxie 500 is not simply a classic car, but a reminder of a completely different era of American automotive design. It represents a time when cars were large, comfortable, stylish, and filled with personality. For someone looking for a vintage V8 cruiser that is affordable, usable, and full of nostalgic charm, this Galaxie could be a very enjoyable and rewarding classic to own. Number 10. 1964 Dodge Custom 880. In my opinion, this 1964 Dodge Custom 880 is the kind of classic American cruiser that perfectly represents the full-size luxury styling of the early 1960s. Cars from this era had a very unique personality with long body proportions, bold chrome trim, and interiors designed to prioritize comfort above everything else. What makes this particular Dodge especially interesting is that it appears to have survived largely untouched over the years, giving it what many collectors would describe as a true time capsule feel. Powering this Custom 880 is a 383 cubic inch V8 engine paired with Dodge's iconic push-button automatic transmission system. Personally, I think the push-button transmission alone makes this car stand out because it reflects a period in automotive history when manufacturers were experimenting with futuristic designs and unique technology. Instead of a traditional floor shifter or steering column selector, Dodge used dashboard-mounted buttons to control the transmission, and that feature still feels incredibly distinctive today. Combined with the large displacement V8 engine, this setup likely provides a smooth and effortless driving experience with plenty of torque for comfortable highway cruising. According to the seller, the car drives great with no leaks and has remained reliable during ownership. Around 300 miles were added over the last year, suggesting the vehicle has been regularly exercised rather than sitting and used for long periods of time. In my opinion, that is usually a positive sign for an older classic because cars that are driven occasionally often stay mechanically healthier than vehicles left parked for years without use. The seller also notes that the automatic transmission operates properly, which is important considering replacement parts for vintage push-button systems can sometimes be harder to source. One of the biggest highlights of this Dodge appears to be the interior condition. The seller describes it as nearly immaculate and largely original, which is honestly becoming rare to see on full-size sedans from this era. The blue interior likely gives the cabin a very authentic early 1960s atmosphere with wide bench seating, chrome accents, and a spacious layout designed for comfort during long-distance travel. Personally, I think original interiors add a special kind of authenticity to classic cars because they preserve the look and feel that owners would have experienced decades ago when the vehicle was new. The exterior has reportedly been repainted at some point in the past and is finished in black, which gives the large Dodge a more aggressive and elegant appearance. However, the seller openly mentions that the body does have dents and imperfections. Honestly, I think that may actually appeal to certain buyers who are searching for a classic driver rather than a perfect show car. Not every vintage vehicle needs to become a fully restored trailer queen. Sometimes the best classics are the ones you can comfortably drive, enjoy, and park without constantly worrying about every tiny flaw. Underneath the car, only very minor surface rust is reported, which is impressive considering the age and size of the vehicle. Rust is often one of the most expensive and difficult problems to repair on older full-size American cars, especially in areas where road salt was commonly used. In my opinion, finding a mostly solid example like this can save a future owner a huge amount of restoration expense and labor. Another interesting aspect of the Dodge Custom 880 is its place in automotive history. During the early 1960s, Dodge was competing heavily in the full-size luxury market against brands like Ford, Chevrolet, Pontiac, and Chrysler. The Custom 880 was designed to offer upscale styling and comfort while still delivering strong V8 performance. Looking at this car today, it really captures the spirit of that era when American manufacturers focused on making vehicles feel large, comfortable, and visually impressive. The odometer has reportedly stopped working at some point before the current owner purchased the vehicle, so the exact mileage may not be fully accurate. The reading currently shows 70,525 miles, but naturally the true mileage is unknown. Personally, I do not think that would necessarily scare away serious classic car enthusiasts because condition and mechanical health usually matter far more than mileage alone on vehicles over 60 years old. What matters most is how the car drives, how solid the body remains, and whether major systems function properly. Based on the seller's description, this Dodge seems to check many of those important boxes. Overall, I think this 1964 Dodge Custom 880 could be an excellent option for someone looking to own a large vintage American cruiser with character, originality, and a unique driving experience. It may not be a flawless Concours-level restoration, but that is part of what makes it appealing. It sounds like a genuine classic that can still be driven and enjoyed regularly without losing its personality. Located in Lenox Township, Michigan, this Dodge is currently offered at $15,000 or best offer, and the seller may also consider possible trades depending on the situation. For buyers searching for a solid and stylish early 1960s Mopar with authentic charm, this Custom 880 definitely seems worth a closer look. Number 11. This 1967 Ford Galaxie Fastback honestly feels like one of those classic American cars that perfectly blends old-school muscle with modern performance upgrades. In my opinion, the Galaxie has always been one of the coolest full-size Ford models from the 1960s because it combines massive road presence with serious power potential. And this particular build sounds far from ordinary. The first thing that immediately stands out to me is the fastback body style. Personally, I think fastback designs from the late 60s are some of the best-looking shapes ever created in American automotive history. The long roofline flowing smoothly into the rear gives the car a much more aggressive and sporty appearance compared to traditional sedans of the same era. Even standing still, cars like this already look fast. What really grabs my attention, though, is the engine setup. According to the seller, this Galaxie has a 428 that has been bored and stroked. And honestly, in my opinion, that changes the entire personality of the car. The 428 engine already has a legendary reputation among Ford muscle car fans, but when you hear the words bored and stroked, it usually means the engine was built for even more power and torque. This doesn't sound like a simple weekend cruiser anymore. It sounds like a serious street machine with real muscle behind it. Personally, I think that's what makes classic American performance cars so exciting. Back in the 1960s, manufacturers were constantly competing to build bigger, louder, and more powerful engines. Cars weren't just transportation during that era, they were statements. And this Galaxie feels like it still carries that exact spirit today. Another thing that impressed me is the Stage 2 TVS suspension system by Hotchkiss. In my opinion, suspension upgrades are one of the smartest improvements you can make on a classic car, especially large full-size cars like the Galaxie. Older American muscle cars are famous for straight-line power, but many of them originally handled like giant boats around corners. Adding a modern suspension setup like this likely transforms the driving experience completely, making the car feel more stable, responsive, and enjoyable on the road. The newer brakes all around are another detail I personally appreciate. Big horsepower is exciting, but having proper stopping power matters just as much. Many older muscle cars struggle with braking compared to modern vehicles, so hearing that the brakes were updated gives me much more confidence in the overall build. One of my favorite details in this listing is definitely the full custom exhaust system with Flowmasters. Honestly, if you know classic American muscle cars, you already know how iconic Flowmaster exhaust sounds can be. In my opinion, sound is a huge part of the experience when it comes to vintage performance cars. Modern vehicles may be quieter and more refined, but classic V8 muscle cars deliver a raw mechanical sound that feels emotional and unforgettable. I can easily imagine this Galaxie firing up with that deep aggressive rumble echoing through the exhaust. That's the kind of sound that instantly turns heads and reminds people why classic American muscle cars became legendary in the first place. The seller also mentions that the car has power steering and manual brakes but no air conditioning. Personally, I don't think the lack of AC would bother true classic car enthusiasts too much because cars like this are more about the driving experience and character than luxury comfort. In fact, many people actually prefer simpler setups in old muscle cars because it keeps the car feeling more mechanical and connected to the road. What I also find interesting is the seller's attitude toward the car. The description says, "I don't need to sell but looking to move on to another project." And honestly, in my opinion, that usually feels different from someone desperately trying to get rid of a problem car. It gives the impression that the owner genuinely enjoyed building or owning this Galaxie and is simply ready for a new project. The overall condition is listed as used but good, which honestly feels realistic for a classic performance car from 1967. Personally, I'd rather see an honest driver-quality muscle car than something overly polished that never leaves a trailer. Cars like this are meant to be driven, heard, and experienced on the road. And visually, the Galaxie Fastback has such a unique identity compared to other muscle cars from the same era. Mustangs, Camaros, and Chargers often get most of the attention, but full-size performance cars like the Galaxie have their own kind of intimidation factor. They look massive, powerful, and unapologetically American. The price of $26,000 also feels pretty understandable to me considering the modifications and performance upgrades involved. Between the built 428 engine, upgraded suspension system, newer brakes, and custom exhaust setup, it sounds like a lot of work and money already went into the car. In today's market, serious classic muscle builds can become extremely expensive very quickly. What I personally love most about cars like this is the feeling they create. Modern performance cars are technically faster and more advanced, but they often feel too computerized and controlled. A classic muscle car like this 1967 Ford Galaxie Fastback feels raw, loud, mechanical, and alive. It demands attention and gives the driver a much more emotional connection to the machine. Overall, in my opinion, this Galaxie feels like a perfect combination of vintage American style and modernized muscle performance. It keeps the soul of a classic 60s Ford while adding upgrades that likely make it far more fun and capable to drive today. And honestly, for someone who truly appreciates old-school American horsepower, this looks like the kind of car that would make every drive feel memorable. Number 12. Today we're looking at a true luxury cruiser from the late 70s, a 1978 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz finished in an eye-catching triple white combination. And honestly, in my opinion, this is the kind of classic Cadillac that perfectly represents the oversized American luxury era. Big body, soft ride, tons of style, and enough presence to make it feel like a rolling piece of history. This Eldorado Biarritz comes with white exterior paint, a white interior, and that clean vintage Cadillac look that immediately stands out. Personally, I think triple white classics always have a special elegance to them, especially on a car this large. It gives the car a very rich and classy appearance that fits the Cadillac name perfectly. According to the listing, the car has around 95,000 miles and is powered by the famous 425 cubic inch engine paired with an automatic transmission. The seller says the car runs and drives excellent, and apparently everything has already been done to it, meaning it's the kind of classic you can supposedly jump in and drive anywhere without immediately worrying about repairs or unfinished projects. One detail that really caught my attention is the factory sunroof. The seller mentions it's rare, and honestly, you really don't see many of these Eldorados equipped that way anymore. Small factory options like that can make a classic car feel even more unique and collectible over time. It adds extra personality to a car that already has plenty of character on its own. What I personally love about late 70s Cadillacs is how different they feel compared to modern cars. Back then, luxury wasn't about giant screens or complicated technology. It was about comfort, smoothness, and making the driver feel important behind the wheel. Cars like this were designed to float down the highway quietly while giving passengers a soft and relaxing ride. The Eldorado Biarritz was one of Cadillac's premium trims during that era, and you can definitely feel that upscale attitude in the styling. The long hood, massive body lines, chrome details, and cushioned interior all scream classic American luxury. In my opinion, these cars almost feel more like living room couches on wheels than traditional automobiles, and honestly, that's part of their charm. Another thing I appreciate about this listing is that the seller says the car has a clean title and no significant damage or major problems. That's always reassuring when looking at older classics because restoration costs can add up very quickly. Finding one that already runs, drives, and presents itself nicely can save the next owner a lot of time and money. And let's be honest, this is the kind of car that turns heads without even trying. You don't have to modify it or customize it heavily because the car already has such a strong personality from the factory. Whether parked at a local car show or cruising down the road, a big white Cadillac from the 70s naturally attracts attention. Personally, I think this would be an awesome weekend cruiser or collector car for someone who appreciates old-school American luxury. It's not built for speed or aggressive performance. It's built for style, comfort, and enjoying the driving experience at a relaxed pace. And honestly, sometimes that's exactly what makes classic cars fun. The seller mentions they're mainly letting it go because they need the room, which could potentially make this an interesting opportunity for the right buyer. The car is located in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, with an asking price of $12,000 or best offer. Overall, in my opinion, this 1978 Cadillac Eldorado Biarritz looks like a stylish and well-preserved classic luxury car with a lot of vintage charm, rare factory features, and the kind of road presence that modern cars simply can't replicate anymore. Number 13. A 1967 Pontiac Lemans that presents an interesting opportunity for classic car enthusiasts looking for a solid vintage project with strong long-term potential. In my opinion, this car stands out because it combines the timeless styling of a late 1960s Pontiac with several valuable extra parts and restoration history that could make it an exciting build for the right buyer. Finished in a green exterior paired with a matching green interior, the vehicle carries the unmistakable muscle car appearance that made Pontiac models from this era so popular among American performance enthusiasts. Even though the car currently needs additional work, it still appears to retain a strong foundation that could eventually be transformed into a very impressive classic cruiser or even a GTO-inspired project. Under the hood, the car currently features the original Sprint 6 overhead cam engine paired with a 2-speed Powerglide automatic transmission. In my opinion, the OHC inline-6 setup is one of the more unique engine configurations offered during the 1960s because Pontiac attempted to create something different from the traditional V8 muscle car formula. While the seller states that the engine currently has a bad camshaft, many enthusiasts still appreciate these overhead cam Pontiac engines because of their unusual design and historical significance. However, what makes this listing especially interesting is the inclusion of an additional 400 cubic inch engine and a turbo 400 transmission, both of which are included with the sale but will require rebuilding. Personally, I think this dramatically increases the appeal of the car because a properly rebuilt Pontiac 400 V8 could completely transform the Lemans into a far more aggressive and powerful muscle car while staying true to Pontiac heritage. The seller explains that the car underwent an off-frame restoration during the early 1990s, which suggests that significant work was completed in the past to preserve the vehicle's structure and condition. Although the car has reportedly been sitting in storage since being purchased during the 1990s, the seller describes it as a solid vehicle with only minimal rust spots. In my opinion, finding a classic car from this era with limited rust is extremely important because structural rust repair can quickly become one of the most expensive and time-consuming parts of any restoration project. A solid body and frame often provide a much better starting point than a fully restored-looking car hiding major corrosion underneath. The listing also includes several desirable extra components, including a GTO hood, center console, and front coil springs. Personally, I think these additional parts create even more possibilities for future customization and restoration. Many enthusiasts love converting Lemans models into GTO-inspired builds because the body styles share many similarities, allowing owners to recreate the appearance of the legendary Pontiac GTO at a more accessible entry price. The inclusion of these parts may save future owners both time and money when sourcing hard-to-find components for the restoration process. Of course, the vehicle is not without its challenges. The seller openly states that the interior still requires work, including the dashboard, fuse block, and headliner. In my opinion, transparency like this is actually a positive sign because it gives potential buyers a realistic understanding of the car's current condition instead of hiding unfinished areas. Classic car projects often involve electrical repairs, interior restoration, and cosmetic updates, especially for vehicles that have remained in storage for extended periods of time. Fortunately, many reproduction interior components for 1960s Pontiac models remain available through the aftermarket, which may help simplify parts sourcing during the restoration process. One aspect that personally makes this Lemans appealing is the flexibility it offers to different types of buyers. Someone interested in preserving the car's originality could rebuild the Sprint 6 overhead cam engine and maintain the rare factory-style configuration. On the other hand, performance enthusiasts may prefer rebuilding the included 400 cubic inch V8 and turbo 400 transmission to create a much more traditional muscle car experience with increased horsepower and stronger acceleration. In my opinion, having both options available adds unique value because the future owner can choose the direction that best fits their vision for the car. The seller states that the vehicle has approximately 22,000 miles and carries a clean title with no significant accident damage or major structural issues reported. While mileage claims on older vehicles can sometimes be difficult to fully verify, the overall description suggests that the car has been preserved rather than heavily abused over the years. Personally, I think long-term storage can be both positive and negative for classic cars. On one hand, it may help preserve the body and originality, but on the other hand, Mechanical systems often require refreshing after sitting and used for extended periods. Fortunately, this lemans already appears to be priced with restoration needs clearly taken into account. The asking price for this 1967 Pontiac lemans is $13,000 or best offer, with the seller specifically requesting serious buyers only and no trades. In my opinion, the value here comes less from immediate drivability and more from the car's long-term restoration potential, included drivetrain components, solid body condition, and desirable Pontiac platform. Considering the rising popularity of vintage muscle cars and the increasing prices of fully restored Pontiac models, this lemans could become a rewarding investment for someone willing to dedicate the necessary time and effort into completing the project properly. Located in Youngstown, Ohio, this 1967 Pontiac lemans represents a classic American project car with strong potential, rare vintage character, and multiple possible restoration paths. In my opinion, this is the kind of vehicle that appeals most to true enthusiasts who enjoy the process of bringing an older muscle car back to life, rather than simply purchasing a finished show car. With its solid structure, included 400 V8 engine, restoration history, and iconic late 1960s Pontiac styling, this lemans offers the foundation for a future classic that could eventually become both highly enjoyable and highly valuable once fully restored and completed. Number 14. A seriously aggressive 1964 Chevrolet Chevelle that combines classic muscle car styling with modern street performance upgrades that make it feel far more powerful than its vintage appearance might suggest. In my opinion, this Chevelle represents the kind of build that many muscle car enthusiasts dream about because it keeps the raw personality of a 1960s American classic while adding the kind of mechanical upgrades that transform it into a true street machine. From the sound of the engine to the manual transmission setup, this car appears built for drivers who enjoy a loud, fast, and engaging driving experience rather than simply owning a showpiece. At the heart of this Chevelle sits a powerful 383-stroker V8 engine paired with a legendary Muncie M22 4-speed manual transmission. In my opinion, this combination alone completely changes the personality of the vehicle and gives it a much more serious performance identity compared to a stock Chevelle from the same era. The 383-stroker is widely respected in the muscle car community because it delivers strong low-end torque, aggressive acceleration, and a deep, powerful exhaust tone that instantly grabs attention. Combined with the Muncie M22, often nicknamed the Rock Crusher, because of its strong internal design and unmistakable gear noise, this setup likely creates an extremely raw and exciting driving experience every time the car hits the road. Unlike many modern performance cars that rely heavily on electronics and driving assists, this Chevelle appears to deliver a much more direct and mechanical connection between the driver and the road. Shifting through the 4-speed manual transmission while feeling the power of the stroker engine likely gives the car a personality that feels intense, physical, and completely authentic. In my opinion, that is one of the biggest reasons why classic muscle cars like this continue to attract enthusiasts even decades later. They offer a level of emotion and engagement that many modern vehicles simply cannot replicate. The seller describes the car as mean and fast, and based on the listed upgrades, that statement seems very believable. The vehicle uses a 10-bolt rear-end setup that likely helps transfer the engine's power effectively to the rear wheels, creating strong acceleration and a classic rear-wheel drive muscle car feel. This Chevelle was clearly built to be driven aggressively while still maintaining enough practicality to be enjoyed on the street. In my opinion, cars like this become especially exciting because they balance brute power with classic style, allowing the driver to enjoy both performance and nostalgia at the same time. One of the most attractive aspects of this vehicle is the amount of recent maintenance and upgrades already completed. In May 2023, the car received power front disc brakes, significantly improving braking performance and driver confidence compared to older factory drum brake systems. For a powerful muscle car like this, upgraded brakes are an extremely important addition because they help make the vehicle safer and more enjoyable to drive regularly. The installation of a new harmonic balancer, new gas tank, and fuel lines during the same period also shows that the owner invested time and money into improving the car's reliability and drivability rather than simply focusing on cosmetic appearance. Additional upgrades include a new Edelbrock 750 carburetor installed in August 2022 along with a new electronic ignition system. In my opinion, these upgrades likely help the engine run more consistently and improve throttle response, making the car feel sharper and more responsive during acceleration. The manifold gaskets were also replaced in August 2024, suggesting that maintenance continued even recently rather than stopping years ago. This is always a positive sign because it shows ongoing care and attention rather than neglect. Visually, the car features a blue exterior paired with a black interior, which is one of the most timeless and aggressive color combinations for a classic muscle car. The seller mentions that a brand-new steel cowl hood was custom-built by Blue Ribbon Customs in 2023, adding an even more intimidating and performance-oriented appearance to the front of the vehicle. In my opinion, the cowl hood completely changes the attitude of the car and gives it the kind of aggressive stance that instantly makes people realize this is not an ordinary classic cruiser. It gives the Chevelle a stronger muscle car identity while still looking period-correct and tasteful rather than overly modified. The exterior does have a few imperfections, including some rock chips along the rocker panels and rust issues in the trunk area. However, the seller states that the rest of the body consists of solid metal. In my opinion, small flaws like these are very common for vintage muscle cars that have actually been driven and enjoyed rather than hidden away in climate-controlled garages for decades. Many enthusiasts actually prefer cars with small imperfections because they feel more authentic and less stressful to own. Instead of constantly worrying about preserving a flawless finish, the owner can simply focus on driving and enjoying the vehicle the way muscle cars were originally intended to be used. Inside the cabin, the interior is described as nice overall, even if not perfect. The seats remain solid, while the carpet and headliner are reportedly in great condition. The car could use new window trim pieces, but overall the interior appears functional, clean, and ready to enjoy immediately. In my opinion, this type of honest condition often appeals more to real enthusiasts because it reflects a car that has been cared for and maintained without becoming overly restored or losing its original character. Another major detail that makes this listing especially interesting is the optional inclusion of a brand new GM LS3 6.2-liter crate engine producing approximately 495 horsepower along with a controller kit. The seller is willing to include this package with the car for a higher price. In my opinion, this creates two very different possibilities for the future owner. One option is to keep the existing 383-stroker setup and enjoy the traditional old-school muscle car experience with a carbureted V8 and manual transmission. The other option is to eventually swap in the LS3 and transform the car into an even more modern high-horsepower restomod with improved reliability and extreme performance potential. That flexibility adds a unique level of value to the overall package. The vehicle is located in Burlington, Wisconsin, and is being offered for $22,000 for the car alone or $31,000 including the LS3 engine and controller kit. Considering the drivetrain upgrades, manual transmission, recent maintenance, and overall aggressive setup, this Chevelle appears to offer a strong combination of performance, style, and customization potential. In my opinion, this is the kind of muscle car that would feel equally at home at local car shows, weekend cruises, or late-night street drives where the sound of the V8 and the feel of the 4-speed transmission become part of the entire experience. Overall, this 1964 Chevrolet Chevelle feels less like a simple classic car and more like a machine built for enthusiasts who genuinely love driving. From the loud stroker engine and Muncie transmission to the aggressive cowl hood and upgraded braking system, nearly every aspect of the build contributes to a vehicle that feels powerful, emotional, and full of personality. In my opinion, cars like this continue to hold a special place in automotive culture because they deliver an experience that remains impossible to fully replace, no matter how advanced modern performance cars become. Number 15. This 1969 Chevrolet Impala honestly feels like one of those classic American project cars with a lot of hidden potential waiting for the right owner. In my opinion, cars like this are interesting because they're not perfect showroom vehicles, they're opportunities. And sometimes, the most rewarding classic cars are the ones you slowly bring back to life yourself. The first thing that comes to my mind when I hear 1969 Impala is just how iconic these big-body Chevrolets were during the late 60s. Back then, American cars had massive road presence, long body lines, chrome everywhere, and a style that modern vehicles simply can't replicate anymore. Personally, I think the 1969 model year has one of the cleanest and most recognizable Impala designs ever made. This particular car comes with a white exterior and black interior, which in my opinion is one of the safest but most timeless classic combinations. Even if the car eventually gets restored or modified, those colors work perfectly with the aggressive but elegant look of the Impala body style. Now honestly, this isn't a fully restored classic ready to cruise tomorrow. This is clearly more of a project car, but that's actually part of what makes it interesting to me. The seller describes it as a roller with a Powerglide transmission included, meaning the original engine is no longer in the car after the old 327 reportedly spun a bearing. Personally, I think that opens the door for endless possibilities depending on what kind of build someone wants to create. Some buyers might choose to stay period correct and rebuild another small block Chevy setup similar to the original configuration. Others might go much more aggressive and swap in a big block or even a modern LS engine. That's one thing I really like about older Impalas. They're versatile platforms that can become almost anything depending on the owner's vision. The seller also mentions that the frame is perfect, and honestly, in my opinion, that might be one of the most important details in the entire listing. Rust and structural damage can completely destroy the value and feasibility of restoring a classic car. Cosmetic body repairs are one thing, but a solid frame is a huge advantage. Knowing that the frame is in excellent shape makes this Impala sound much more promising as a future restoration project. Of course, the car still needs work. The listing says it needs quarter panels and driver's side floor pan patches, which is pretty common for older American cars from this era. Personally, I don't find that too shocking considering the age of the vehicle. Most classic project cars need some level of rust repair, especially cars that have survived for more than 50 years. What I actually find encouraging is that the seller describes the rest of the car as fairly solid overall. That gives me the impression that this isn't a completely destroyed parts car. It sounds more like a workable foundation for someone willing to put in time and effort. The interior also sounds better than I expected for a $1,000 classic car. According to the seller, the interior is decent besides the headliner and carpet. Honestly, I think many people would expect far worse condition at this price point. Interior restoration alone can become very expensive on old cars, so having decent seats and trim already in place could save a future owner a lot of money and effort. Another detail I personally appreciate is the fact that the car comes with all new brake parts and additional extra components. In my opinion, that's always a positive sign because it suggests the owner may have originally intended to restore or repair the car before deciding to sell it. Extra parts can also save future owners both time and money during the restoration process. The clean title is another important advantage here. Older project cars sometimes come with complicated paperwork problems, missing registrations, or title issues, so having a clean title makes the entire project feel much safer and easier to deal with. Now honestly, the biggest surprise in this listing is definitely the price. $1,000 for a 1969 Chevrolet Impala feels extremely cheap in today's classic car market, especially with a clean title and solid frame. Of course, it still needs work and an engine, but in my opinion, the value here is really in the potential. I can easily imagine someone turning this Impala into an incredible street cruiser over time. The body style alone already has so much personality. Cars from this era had a level of presence that modern vehicles rarely achieve. Even unfinished, an old full-size Chevy like this still looks cool simply because of its shape and history. Personally, I think project cars like this attract a very specific kind of enthusiast, people who enjoy the process just as much as the final result. Restoring an old car takes patience, money, and dedication, but there's something satisfying about saving a classic vehicle from disappearing forever. What I also love about cars like this is the freedom they offer. Since it's already missing the original engine, future owners don't have to feel guilty about modifying it. This could become a factory-style restoration, a lowered street cruiser, a drag-inspired muscle build, or even a modern restomod. The possibilities are honestly endless. Overall, in my opinion, this 1969 Chevrolet Impala feels like an affordable entry point into the classic American car world. It's not perfect, and it definitely needs work, but that's exactly what gives it potential. Underneath the missing engine and needed repairs, there's still a real piece of late 60s American automotive history waiting for someone to bring it back to life. And honestly, I think that's what makes this car so interesting.